Hello, this is OverlordBou back with another ship review video, and today we'll be looking at the new Tier 10 Soviet Navy large cruiser, the Sevastopol. Now, the Sevastopol will be available with the release of patch 11.7, which would be around a week or 2 weeks. Should be located in the Research Bureau for 58,000 research points. Now, today I'll be going over my recommended captain build, the module setup, followed by the ship stats, and finally I'll give my thoughts about her performance overall. First up, let's go over the captain build and upgrades, which will be shown in the top right. As you can tell, there isn't really anything too unusual with this build. You can pause at any time to be able to screenshot the build, so you can use it when you get the ship if you'd like. The only unusual thing about this is the use of heavy AP, but the Sevastopol you want to use mostly AP shells, so you want to use the heavy AP to get extra damage. The HE on the Sevastopol isn't very impressive, so that's the reasoning behind that. So let's talk about the ship herself, starting with her armor and survivability. Now, the armor scheme will be shown on the top right during this. The ship has a 25mm bow/stern with 30mm deck and upper side plating, with a 16mm superstructure. The ship has 62,600 HP pull with a 34% torpedo protection. Now, it does have a relatively small bow and stern section with a waterline citadel and a 60-second fire duration. Although Sevastopol looks tanky on paper, her poor armor scheme in large size largely negates her high HP pool. Her 30mm deck is vulnerable to light cruiser HE shells, and she takes full duration fires, which sucks. Combined with her large size, she quickly takes damage under enemy focused fire. Most enemy BB-AP rounds will also punch right through her 30mm armor, which makes it difficult to angle. Instead, Sevastopol relies heavily on her unique repair party to survive battles. But let's talk about her guns. The main armament, there are two 380mm 52 guns with 19.1 kilometer range with a 25-second base reload. They have a 36-second, 180-turn turret diverse, and can fire 25 degrees off of the bow and 32 degrees off of the stern. The HE shell damage is 5,350, with the HE pen being 64mm. Now, they do have a 34% fire chance and have a 77k HE DPM. Now, the AP shell damage is 11,300 with a 26mm overmatch with a 50 through 65 degree ricochet angle and 163k AP DPM. Now, it does use the normal cruiser dispersion. It has the highest cruiser AP penetration past 13 kilometers, very similar to the Alas and Burgoyne's AP penetration if you want to recommend it. The AP has slightly shorter fuse time than normal, which is really good. The shell dispersion will be shown on the top right. Now, the Sevastopol's guns are very similar to that of the 15-inch gun German BBs like the Siegfried and the Bismarck. Though their guns are not identical, with Sevastopol's having faster shells and better AP penetration. Like Siegfried, Sevastopol's gets cruiser dispersion on her battleship caliber guns. With her AP having BB level penetration, she can easily land citadel hits on battleships that show their broadsides. Unfortunately, her HE is fairly lacking due to her low barrel count and slow reload. While her initial salvo is powerful, her slow reload means she quickly falls behind true cruisers in damage output. Instead, rely on her powerful and accurate AP and pick off broadside ships. Her shortened fuse time can help arm on thinly armored targets like light cruisers. Let's move on to the secondary battery. You get 8 twin 100mm/70mm guns with 1400 HE damage and a 7.3 kilometer range. You do get a standard secondary accuracy, which is not very accurate at all. Like most ships, Sevastopol lacks the effective secondaries in close combat. Other than the occasional fires, do not expect them to contribute much to the battle. Now, for the anti-air defense, you get 5 inner plus 1 outer flat clouds, with the long range continuous DPM of the anti-air being 130 and the mid being 385. The Sevastopol's AA defense is rather mediocre compared to other tier 10 cruisers. While her firepower is respectable, she is a massive target for CV attacks. She is highly vulnerable to everything but rocket strikes, negating her large HP pool advantage. Planes can also easily spot her, making it difficult to position aggressively. Like most other cruisers, Sevastopol should be careful whenever a CV is in play. Now for the anti-air submarine airstrike. You get 2 max charges with a number of DCs per attacker 6, and they do a damage of 2600 with a reload time of 45 seconds with a range of 8 kilometers. Unusual for a cruiser, Sevastopol has a strong ASW airstrike as she drops twice as much depth charges as other ships. While still limited by range, at least her depth charges deal heavy damage whenever they hit. Now let's move on to the maneuverability. She has a max speed of 33.5 knots with a 980 meter turning radius with a 15.1 second rudder shift time. Sevastopol's maneuverability is fairly poor, more comparable to a battleship rather than a cruiser. While her top speed is average, her wide turning circle and slow rudder shift are terrible compared to other cruisers. Combined with a large hull, she will struggle to maneuver into tight positions or dodge torpedo salvos. Moving on to the concealment, she has a surface detection of 13.6 kilometers base and an aerial detection of 10.4 kilometers base. And if you build into it, you get a best concealment surface of 11 kilometers and a best air detection of 8.4 kilometers. Now, for a ship of her size, Sevastopol is surprisingly stealthy, having concealment compared to the Des Moines. Now, this lets her get relatively close before blasting some unfortunate cruiser with her 15-inch guns. On the other hand, her aerial detection is bad, but it's expected for such a large ship. Overall, the Sevastopol's concealment is much better than expected, and players should take full advantage of this when moving her into position. Moving on to consumables, Sevastopol has a unique fast damage control party with 10 seconds immunity period, a 30-second reload time, and 3 charges, 4 if you use with SI. Now, you can pick between a standard defensive AA or a standard hydro. I would recommend the standard hydro, but it's up to you on your preference. You can have 4 base charges and 5 with superintendent with the DFAA. It does a plus 50% continuous damage, plus 300% flak damage with a 40-second active time and an 80-second reload time. Now for the standard hydro, you get 3 base charges, 4 with superintendent, 5 kilometer surface ship detection with 3.5 torpedo protection with 100 seconds active time and 120 seconds cooldown time. Now, the ship does have a unique, long-lasting repair party that has 3 charges base and 4 with the superintendent. It repairs up to 45% of the HP base over 90 seconds. So the heal will be going on for 90 seconds. Instead of like a short, like 30-second timer or 20, this goes on for 90 seconds. And it does have a cooldown of 180 seconds. So usually with this kind of heal, if you're not going to be going to combat with a long time, whenever you get hit with the first strike, normally you want to pop that heal as long as you know you're going to be going in the fight for longer than 2 minutes. So over that whole period, you'll be healing up the damage over that period instead of waiting a whole 90 seconds whenever you take a lot of damage. So just a tip on that. Now with the unique engine boost, you get 4 charges with the 5 with the superintendent. It does give you a plus 20% to max speed and also gives improved acceleration, which is very useful for throttle juking. It does have a 45-second active time and a 60-second reload. Now, Sevastopol has a very interesting consumable loadout, 3 of her 4 consumable versions being exclusively only to her. The most unique of them would be her repair party. Although she heals at the standard rate of 0.5% HP per second, the heal lasts for 90 seconds, which heals more than the Royal Navy super heal. This lets her endure fires and flooding quite well, especially with the good use of her DCP. However, the drawback is that she can't take burst damage as well. Once her long heal is done, she's effectively out of the fight for another 3 minutes. Her DCP is similar to the RUBBs, except she gets one less charge. Instead of putting out fires, use your repair party instead. Finally, her engine boost lets her dodge some shells or move slightly faster into positioning because of the improved acceleration. Now, my overall impressions of the Sevastopol is the skill floor is above average and the skill ceiling is above average. The Sevastopol is a tier 10 cruiser with a very unique playstyle owing to her unusually large guns and consumable setup. Her BB guns are very effective as long as they can catch broadside cruisers and BBs. However, they don't have a good overall damage output and heavily rely on punishing vulnerable ships. The Sevastopol is also unique in the terms of her tanking ability, relying on her long-lasting heal to survive battles. Unlike other ships, the Sevastopol's heal is designed to tank for extended durations before running away to wait out the long cooldown. Ideally, you want 2 or 3 ships shooting at you, enough for the heal to keep up, but not so much that the enemy can burst you down. So you want to pop the heal as soon as you come under focus fire. If done properly, the enemy will be trying to kill you as your regen is active. Effectively turning your ship into a zombie tank, saving your limited DCPs for floods or weird engine / rudder kills. Perhaps fires if you get a triple fire. The heal does last for 90 seconds, so try to stay engaged in combat until then. So you don't want to overstay your welcome, as your heal does have a 3-minute cooldown. You can use your speed boost to get away if needed. Overall, I'd say the Sevastopol is a very unusual ship with a unique playstyle, culminating in a perhaps disappointing average ship. This is probably due to conflicting strengths of her gimmicks. The heal wants you to make you stay in the fight for extended periods, while the guns and concealment want you to sneak around and sucker punch broadside ships. So it just kind of seems they're contradicting each other. That is not to say that ship is bad though, but rather an unfortunate shadow of her potential had she gotten different gimmicks. Now for randoms, I'd say the ship is pretty average. Like Siegfried, Sevastopol likes to run around and cosplay as an accurate BB, preying on broadside cruisers and BBs. For ranked, I'd say it's poor. Sevastopol lacks almost every needed to succeed in a ranked setting. No utility, inadequate armor, poor firepower are her downfalls. The faster pace of ranked even makes her long duration heals less effective in practice. Now for clan battles, which if they're in tier 10, unlikely to be used, like in ranked, Sevastopol lacks any useful attributes that could help the team. Her 15-inch guns also cannot deal with angled enemy cruisers, leaving her heal as the only redeeming quality. However, if it's a long cooldown, makes her useless after it is done. There are better options available than the Sevastopol. So as like a final note, as I was saying earlier, there are better options to get for research bureau points than the Sevastopol. I would say that in the end, since the Sevastopol is a research bureau ship, if it was like coal or something, I'd be more likely to recommend it, but since research bureau does take more of an investment, I would recommend the tier 9 Siegfried over the Sevastopol due to the Siegfried being cheaper in research bureau points, and they both have very similar styles, and the Siegfried does perform better with the matchmaking. Since it does get the tier 9 matchmaking, you can go down to tier 7s more. It does go up to super ships from time to time, but in the end I would say that the Siegfried is probably worth a little bit more. So that's up to you in that preference, but I'll let you guys decide from the video. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, definitely let me know in the comments down below. But this is OverlordBou, and I'll talk to y'all later.
You must be the player base.